The office was a battlefield of whispers, and I was caught in the crossfire. My boss, Mr. Hargrove, stood at the head of the conference room, his eyes like daggers, slicing through the air toward me. "Elliot, care to explain why you've been dodging the team-building retreat?" He barked, his voice a public guillotine. I froze, my heart hammering against my ribs. The truth I'd buried for years clawed at my throat, desperate to escape. I was 25, a junior analyst at Harper & Stone, a marketing firm in downtown Chicago, and I'd spent every day since my hire 2 years ago hiding who I was. My colleagues, a mix of ambitious 20-somethings and seasoned professionals, stared at me, their curiosity a weight I couldn't shake. I'd always been the quiet one, the guy who smiled politely, kept his head down, and churned out flawless reports. But Hargrove's question wasn't about work. It was personal, and he knew it. "Elliot," he pressed, leaning forward, his tie swinging like a pendulum. "We're a team. No secrets." His words were laced with a challenge, a dare to crack open the armor I'd worn since high school. I glanced at Sarah, my closest friend in the office, her auburn hair catching the fluorescent light. Her eyes, wide with concern, urged me to stay calm. But calm wasn't an option. Not anymore. I can't make it to the retreat," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. The room was silent, save for the hum of the air conditioning. Hargrove's lips curled into a smirk, sensing weakness. He'd always had a knack for sniffing out vulnerability, like a shark circling blood in the water. "And why's that?" He pushed, crossing his arms. "Got something to hide?" My palms sweated, my tie suddenly too tight. I'd spent years dodging questions like this, crafting half-truths to keep my life private. Growing up in a small town in Indiana, I'd learned early that being openly gay wasn't safe. My parents, devout and unyielding, had made that clear with their lectures about sin and normalcy. I'd moved to Chicago for freedom, but even here, in a city buzzing with diversity, I kept my truth locked away. Work was my sanctuary, or so I thought until now. Sarah shifted in her seat, her pen tapping nervously. She knew. She'd known since last summer when we'd stayed late to finish a project, and I'd let slip about a date that hadn't gone well. She hadn't flinched, just offered me a beer and a smile, saying, "You're still you, Elliot." But telling her was one thing. Telling the entire office, under Hargrove's glare, was another. "I'm not hiding," I said, my voice steadier now, though my insides churned. "I just have personal reasons." The lie tasted bitter. Hargrove's eyes narrowed, and I knew he wouldn't let it go. He'd been riding me for weeks, ever since he'd overheard a vague phone call I'd taken in the break room. He'd started digging, dropping pointed comments about trust and transparency. I'd hoped he'd tire of it, but Hargrove was relentless. "Personal reasons," he scoffed, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "This is a team, Elliot. If you're not all in, maybe you don't belong here." The words hit like a punch. My job was my lifeline, me rent, my student loans, my independence. Losing it wasn't an option. But neither was bearing my soul to a room full of near strangers. I stood, my chair scraping against the floor. "I need a minute," I muttered, heading for the door. Hargrove called after me, but I didn't stop. The hallway was a blur, my footsteps echoing as I made for the stairwell. I needed air, space, anything to stop the walls from closing in. I didn't know it then, but that moment was the spark that would ignite everything me truth. My fight, and the unexpected allies who'd rise with me. The stairwell was cold, the concrete steps a stark contrast to the polished office above. I sank onto a step, my head in my hands. Why now? Why me? I'd worked so hard to blend in, to be the perfect employee. But Hargrove had seen through the cracks, and he was determined to break me open. I thought of my boyfriend, Jamie, who'd been pushing me to come out at work. You deserve to be yourself, he'd said last night, his voice soft as we lay on his couch. But being myself felt like walking into a storm with no shelter. Footsteps echoed above me. Sarah appeared, her expression a mix of worry and determination. Elliot, what the hell was that? She asked, sitting beside me. Hargrove's out of line. You don't owe him anything. He won't stop, I said, my voice cracking. He knows something's up, and he's gonna keep pushing until I break. Then don't break, she said fiercely. You're stronger than him, and you're not alone. Her words were a lifeline, but I wasn't sure I could grab it. Not yet. Back in the office, the meeting had ended, but the tension lingered. Colleagues shot me curious glances as I returned to my desk. Hargrove was in his glass-walled office, watching me like a hawk. I opened my laptop, trying to focus on a spreadsheet. But my mind was a hurricane. I didn't know how to fight this, or if I even could. But as the day wore on, something shifted. Sarah lingered by my desk, slipping me a note. We've got your back. I didn't understand it then, but it was the first hint that this wasn't just my battle. That night, I met Jamie at our favorite diner, a cozy spot in Wicker Park. His blue eyes sparkled under the neon lights as he reached for my hand. You okay? He asked, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. I told him everything, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. He listened, his face a mix of anger and resolve. You don't have to do this alone, he said. But you do have to decide what you're fighting for. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of my tiny apartment, weighing my options. Hide and hope Hargrove backed off. Or face him. Face them all. And risk everything. The choice felt impossible. But Jamie's words echoed, "What are you fighting for?" By dawn, I knew. I was fighting for myself, for the right to exist as I was, without shame or fear. But I had no idea what that fight would cost, or how it would change everything. The next morning, the office felt like a pressure cooker. I walked in, my stomach knotted, expecting Hargrove to pounce. He didn't disappoint. By 10 a.m., he'd called an impromptu team huddle in the break room, his voice booming through the open-plan office. Elliot, front and center, he said, his tone dripping with authority. My colleagues shuffled in, their faces a mix of boredom and unease. Sarah caught my eye, her nod a silent "I'm here." Hargrove stood by the coffee machine, arms crossed, his gray suit pristine. "We need to talk about commitment," he began, his eyes locked on me. "Some of you think you can coast, keep secrets, and still be part of this team. That's not how it works. My face burned. He wasn't naming me outright, but every word was a missile aimed at my chest. I gripped the edge of a table, my knuckles white. Commitment means transparency. He continued. If you're not open with us, how can we trust you? The room was silent, save for the faint clink of a spoon in someone's mug. I felt exposed, like a specimen under a microscope. My mind raced back to high school, to the locker room taunts, the whispered slurs. I'd sworn I'd never feel that way again. Yet here I was, cornered. Sarah spoke up, her voice cutting through the tension. Mr. Hargrove, with all due respect, Elliot's work speaks for itself. He's never missed a deadline. Her defense was a spark, but Hargrove brushed it off. This isn't about deadlines, Sarah. It's about trust. He turned to me. So, Elliot, are you going to tell us what's going on? Or do we have to guess? The air felt thick, suffocating. My truth was a weight I'd carried alone for so long. But now it was being demanded. Pried from me like a confession. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Instead, I saw Jamie's face. His encouragement from last night. You're enough. I took a breath, my voice trembling but resolute. I'm not hiding anything you need to know, I said. My personal life doesn't affect my work. Hargrove's jaw tightened. That's not good enough. He stepped closer, his voice low but audible to everyone. If you're not straight with us, Elliot, you're out. The ultimatum hit like a slap. My job, my stability, hung by a thread. I glanced around, expecting averted eyes. But instead, I saw something unexpected: nods of support from a few colleagues. A frown from our HR rep. Linda. I didn't respond. Couldn't. I walked out of the break room, my heart pounding, and headed to the bathroom to splash cold water on my face. The mirror reflected a man I barely recognized, scared. Yes. But also angry. Angry at Hargrove for forcing this. Angry at myself for hiding so long. Sarah found me again. Her voice urgent. He's crossing a line. Elliot, you need to talk to Linda. This isn't okay. Linda, our HR rep, was a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with a reputation for fairness. I hesitated, but Sarah's insistence pushed me to her office. Elliot, Linda said, closing the door. What's going on? I told her everything: Hargrove's pressure, the public confrontations, my fear of being outed. She listened, her face unreadable. This is serious, she said finally. I'll look into it, but you need to decide how much you want to share. Legally, he can't force you to disclose personal details. Her words were a relief, but they didn't erase the dread. I spent the rest of the day buried in work, avoiding Hargrove's gaze. By evening, whispers were spreading. A few colleagues, Mike from design, Priya from analytics, stopped by my desk. Their words cautious but kind. We don't care what Hargrove thinks, Mike said. You're one of us. Priya nodded. He's a bully. Don't let him win. That night, Jamie cooked dinner at his place. A small apartment filled with art prints and mismatched furniture. Over pasta, he pushed me to think bigger. This isn't just about you anymore, he said. Hargrove's targeting you. But what if you stood up? What if you showed everyone who you are? His words were a challenge, one I wasn't sure I could meet. But as I lay awake later, his voice mingled with Sarah's, Mike's, Priya's. I wasn't alone. Not entirely. The next day, Hargrove doubled down. He emailed the team, announcing a mandatory open forum tomorrow to discuss team trust. My stomach sank. It was a trap, a stage for him to humiliate me. But something else was brewing. Sarah texted me, "Meet me at lunch. We're planning something." I didn't know what she meant, but her words lit a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, I could face this. Lunch was a clandestine meeting in a corner booth at a deli across the street. Sarah, Mike, and Priya huddled around a table, their voices low but urgent. "Hargrove's gone too far," Sarah said, her eyes blazing. "He's not just targeting you, Elliot. He's creating a toxic environment for everyone." Mike nodded, pushing his glasses up. "I heard him grill Priya about her work-life balance last week. It's like he's fishing for dirt on all of us." Priya leaned in, her voice steady. "I'm in, Elliot. Whatever you decide, we'll back you." I was stunned. These weren't just colleagues, they were becoming allies. Sarah slid a napkin toward me, scribbled with names: Linda, Tom, Rachel, maybe Alex. "These people are on your side," she said. "They've seen Hargrove's tactics before. He's done this to others. But no one's pushed back. Yet." The idea of a collective stand was intoxicating but terrifying. I spent so long hiding, blending into the background, that the thought of leading a rebellion felt alien. But their belief in me was a lifeline. "What's the plan?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sarah grinned. "We turn his open forum against him. If he wants transparency, we give it to him our way." The plan was simple but bold. We'd each share something personal, not to appease Hargrove, but to show that vulnerability wasn't weakness. It was strength. "You don't have to come out," Sarah added. "But if you do, we'll be right there with you." Back at the office, the air was thick with anticipation. Hargrove strutted around, oblivious to the undercurrent forming against him. I caught Linda's eye as she left a meeting, and she gave me a subtle nod. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me going. I spent the afternoon preparing, my mind a tangle of fear and resolve. Jamie's text came through as I left work. "You've got this. I'm proud of you." His words were a warmth I carried home. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, a notebook open, trying to write what I'd say at the forum. Every sentence felt like a step toward a cliff. I wrote about growing up in Indiana, about the fear that had followed me to Chicago, about loving Jamie and what it meant to hide that love. The words were raw, messy, but they were mine. By midnight, I had a draft, but doubt gnawed at me. What if this backfired? What if I lost everything? The morning of the forum, the office buzzed with nervous energy. Hargrove had set up the conference room like a stage, complete with a projector and a whiteboard labeled Team Values. My stomach churned as I took my seat. Sarah on one side, Mike on the other. Hargrove opened with his usual spiel about trust and unity, but his eyes kept darting to me. "Let's start with you, Elliot," he said, his voice smug. "Tell us something real." My heart pounded, but I stood, clutching my notes. Okay, I said, my voice shaking but clear. I'll tell you who I am. The room went silent. Every eye on me. I took a breath, thinking of Jamie, of Sarah, of the people who'd promised to stand with me. I'm gay, I said, the words ringing out like a bell. I've been hiding it because I was afraid. But I'm not ashamed of who I am. The silence stretched, heavy and electric. Hargrove's face froze, his smirk gone. Then Sarah stood. I'm with Elliot, she said. And I'm tired of this office feeling like a courtroom. Mike was next. I've got anxiety, he admitted. I don't talk about it because I'm scared of being judged. But I'm done hiding. Priya followed, sharing how she'd faced discrimination as an Indian woman in tech. One by one, others stood Tom, Rachel, even quiet Alex, each sharing a piece of themselves. Hargrove's composure cracked. This isn't what I meant. He sputtered. But no one listened. The room was alive, a chorus of truths breaking free. Linda stood last, her voice calm but firm. This is what a team looks like. Mr. Hargrove, maybe you should listen. The room erupted in applause, and for the first time in years, I felt weightless. I spoke in my truth, and I wasn't alone. The applause faded, but the energy in the room lingered, a current of defiance and solidarity. Hargrove's face was a mask of barely contained rage, his hands gripping the edge of the table. This is unprofessional, he snapped, his voice cutting through the hum. This meeting is about work, not personal crusades. But his words fell flat. The room had shifted, and he was no longer in control. I sat down, my legs trembling, but a quiet strength settled in my chest. Sarah squeezed my hand under the table, her smile fierce. Across the room, colleagues exchanged glances, some tearful, others resolute. Linda stepped forward, her presence commanding. Mr. Hargrove, this meeting was your idea, she said. You wanted transparency. You got it. Now, let's move on to actual work. Hargrove opened his mouth, then closed it, his authority unraveling. He muttered something about deadlines and ended the meeting abruptly, storming back to his office. The rest of us lingered, a quiet buzz of conversation filling the space. Mike clapped me on the shoulder. That was badass. Elliot. Priya grinned. You started something big. I wasn't sure what I'd started, but it felt seismic. As we dispersed to our desks, colleagues I barely knew stopped to offer words of support. I didn't know, Rachel said softly, but I'm glad you told us. Even Alex, who rarely spoke, mumbled, You're all right, man. Their words were small but heavy, stitching together the pieces of me I'd kept hidden. That afternoon, Linda called me into her office. Elliot, what happened today was unprecedented, she said, her tone serious but warm. Hargrove's behavior is under review. I've already spoken to upper management, but I need you to file a formal complaint. It's the only way to hold him accountable. The idea of a complaint was daunting. Hargrove wasn't just my boss, she was a senior partner with years of clout. But Linda's steady gaze and the memory of the forum gave me courage. I'll do it, I said. She handed me a form, her expression softening. You're not alone in this. Others have come forward too. By evening, the office was quieter, but the air still crackled with change. Sarah and I stayed late, working on the complaint. She helped me word it, her suggestions sharp and precise. "He's been targeting you unfairly," she said, typing furiously. "We'll make sure they see that." As we worked, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this wasn't just about saving my job. Maybe it was about changing the rules. That night, Jamie met me at the park near my apartment. The autumn air was crisp, the leaves crunching under our feet. I told him about the forum, about the others who'd stood with me. His eyes lit up, and he pulled me into a hug. "You did it," he whispered. "You showed them who you are." I wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered. Hargrove wasn't done, and I knew he'd fight back. The next day, the office was a minefield. Hargrove was colder. His interactions clipped. He avoided me, but his presence loomed. A storm waiting to break. Rumors swirled that he'd been called to a meeting with the CEO. Sarah kept me updated. Her texts a lifeline. "They're taking it seriously. Stay strong." But strength was hard to muster when every glance from Hargrove felt like a threat. By midweek, the complaint was filed, co-signed by Sarah, Mike, and Priya. Linda assured me it was confidential. But the office grapevine was relentless. Whispers followed me, some supportive, others skeptical. A few colleagues distanced themselves, unsure how to navigate the tension. But others drew closer, their support a quiet rebellion against Hargrove's reign. Friday brought a new challenge. Hargrove called me into his office, his demeanor icy. "Elliot, you've caused quite a stir," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You think you can turn my team against me?" His words were a blade, but I held my ground. "I just told the truth," I said. "If that's a problem, maybe you should look at why." He laughed. A cold, hollow sound. "You're playing a dangerous game, kid. You won't win." But as I left his office, I felt a shift. His threats were real, but so was my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for everyone who'd ever felt silenced. Hargrove's threat echoed in my mind all weekend. A dark cloud over the fleeting moments of peace I found with Jamie. We walked along Lake Michigan, the wind biting but the skyline a reminder of why I'd come to Chicago to be free. "He's scared," Jamie said, tossing a pebble into the water. "Bullies always are when you stand up." I wanted to believe him, but Hargrove's words felt like a noose tightening. Monday morning, the office was a chessboard, every move calculated. Hargrove was quieter, his usual swagger subdued, but his eyes still tracked me. Linda called me into her office before lunch. "The investigation's moving forward," she said. "We've got statements from multiple employees about Hargrove's behavior, not just toward you. The CEO's involved now." Her words were a lifeline, but the waiting was agony. Every day felt like a test of endurance. Sarah and the others kept the momentum going. At lunch, we gathered in the deli again, this time with Tom and Rachel. "We're not letting him intimidate us," Tom said, his voice gruff but kind. "I've seen him pull this crap before. It's time someone stopped him." Rachel nodded, her usual reserve gone. "I'm tired of the fear. We're stronger together." Their support was a shield, but cracks were forming. Some colleagues, loyal to Hargrove, started to push back. I overheard snide comments in the break room, Elliot's stirring up drama. He's just attention-seeking. It stung. But Sarah was quick to shut it down. Ignore them, she said. They're just scared of change. Still, the division in the office was palpable. A fault line ready to split. Midweek, Hargrove upped the ante. He assigned me an impossible projecta client pitch due in 3 days. With data I didn't have access to. Show us you're still committed, he said, his smile venomous. It was a setup, a way to undermine me while the investigation loomed. I spent late nights at my desk, Sarah and Mike pitching in, their frustration matching mine. He's trying to bury you, Mike said, rubbing his eyes. But we'll get through this. We did. The pitch was a success. The client impressed. But Hargrove's silence was deafening. He didn't acknowledge the work, just moved on to the next task. It was a power play, a reminder that he still held the reins. But the tide was turning. More colleagues joined our side. Their stories of Hargrove's bullying surfacing. Linda collected them all, her notebook filling with evidence. Friday brought a breakthrough. Linda called me, Sarah, and Mike into a private meeting. The CEO's reviewing everything. She said, they're considering disciplinary action against Hargrove. But they need your input. Elliot, are you willing to speak at a formal hearing? My throat tightened. A hearing meant facing Hargrove head-on, with executives watching. But I thought of Jamie, of the office standing with me, and nodded. I'm in. That night, Jamie took me to a quiet bar in Andersonville, the heart of Chicago's queer community. Over drinks, he reminded me why I was fighting. You're not just standing up for yourself, he said, his hand warm in mine. You're showing others they can too. His belief in me was a fire, burning away my doubt. I went home and prepared my statement, each word a brick in the wall I was building. The hearing was set for the following week. The days leading up to it were a blur of nerves and preparation. Sarah and I rehearsed my statement, her feedback sharp but encouraging. Mike and Priya offered to testify too, their own experiences with Hargrove adding weight to the case. The office was a powder keg, whispers of the hearing spreading like wildfire. Some colleagues avoided me, but others left notes on my desk. Keep going. You're not alone. Each one was a reminder that this fight was bigger than me. The night before the hearing, couldn't sleep. I sat on my balcony. The city lights a distant comfort. Jamie stayed over, his presence steadying me. Whatever happens tomorrow, he said, you've already won. You showed up as yourself. His words were a bomb, but the fear lingered. Tomorrow, I'd face Hargrove, the executives, and the truth I'd fought so hard to claim. I didn't know if I was ready, but I knew I couldn't turn back. The hearing was held in a sterile boardroom on the top floor, the Chicago skyline framed by floor-to-ceiling windows. I sat at a long table, flanked by Sarah and Linda, facing the CEO, Ms. Carter, and 2 other executives. Hargrove sat across from me, his face a mask of calm, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. The air was thick with tension, every word about to carry weight. Ms. Carter, a woman in her 50s with a sharp gaze, opened the session. We're here to address allegations of workplace harassment, she said, her voice measured. "Elliot, we'll start with you." My heart raced, but I clutched my statement. The pages worn from rehearsal. I stood, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "I've been targeted by Mr. Hargrove for months." I began. "He's pressured me to reveal personal details, creating a hostile environment. I came out as gay in a meeting he forced, not because I was ready, but because he left me no choice." I detailed every incident, the public confrontations, the impossible tasks, the veiled threats. My voice grew stronger with each word, fueled by the memory of my colleagues' support. Hargrove's turn came next. He leaned forward, his tone smooth but defensive. "I've only pushed for team cohesion," he said. Elliot's refusal to engage raised concerns about his commitment. I never targeted him. His words were polished, but they rang hollow. Sarah's eyes narrowed beside me, and I knew she saw through him too. Linda presented the evidence statements from me. Sarah, Mike, Priya, and others. Each one painted a picture of Hargrove's pattern, singling out employees, exploiting vulnerabilities, fostering fear. Mike spoke about his anxiety, Priya about her experiences with bias. Their courage bolstered mine, a reminder that we were a united front. Ms. Carter listened intently, her face unreadable. When the executives asked questions, they were pointed, probing Hargrove's motives. "Why focus on Elliot's personal life?" one asked. Hargrove fumbled, his confidence cracking. "I was ensuring team trust," he repeated, but it sounded weaker each time. The hearing lasted hours, each minute a battle. When it ended, Ms. Carter promised a decision within days. I left the room drained but lighter, like I'd shed a weight I'd carried for years. Sarah hugged me in the hallway. "You were incredible," she said. "No matter what happens, you stood up." The wait for the decision was excruciating. The office was a strange mix of support and unease. Colleagues split between those who backed me and those who feared change. Hargrove kept his distance, but his presence was a shadow, a reminder of the stakes. I threw myself into work, trying to stay grounded, but my mind was a storm of what-ifs. That weekend, Jamie took me to a drag show in Boys Town, a vibrant escape from the tension. The performers' confidence, their unapologetic joy, was a reminder of what I was fighting for, a life where I could be myself without fear. Jamie held my hand, his smile a beacon. "You're almost there," he said. "You've already changed things." Monday brought the verdict. Linda called me into her office. Ms. Carter present via video call. "Elliot, we've concluded our investigation." Ms. Carter said, "Mr. Hargrove's actions violated our policies. He's been placed on administrative leave, effective immediately, pending further review." My breath caught. It wasn't a full victory, but it was a start. "We're also implementing mandatory inclusivity training," she added. "Your courage has highlighted gaps we need to address." I left Linda's office in a daze, relief mixing with disbelief. Sarah was waiting, her grin wide. "We did it," she said, pulling me into a hug. Mike and Priya joined us, their excitement infectious. The office felt different, lighter, like a storm had passed. But I knew this wasn't the end. Hargrove's leave was temporary, and the real work changing the culture was just beginning. That night, I cooked dinner for Jamie, a rare moment of calm. We toasted to small victories, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the fight wasn't over. I claimed my truth, but holding it would take more than one hearing. Still, for the first time, I felt like I could. With Hargrove on leave, the office felt like it was holding its breath. The absence of his looming presence was a relief, but it left a void, a question of what came next. I walked in each morning braced for whispers, for sideways glances, but instead, I found something new: respect. Colleagues I'd barely spoken to before now greeted me with nods, some with quiet words of admiration. "You took a stand," Tom said one morning, his gruff voice warm. Not many would. But not everyone was on board. A few of Hargrove's loyalist senior staff who'd thrived under his reign kept their distance, their silence a subtle rebuke. I overheard one, a manager named Greg, muttering about disruption in the break room. It stung. But Sarah was quick to counter. "They're just mad the old boys club is cracking," she said, her eyes fierce. "Keep going, Elliot." The inclusivity training began that week, led by an external consultant named Dr. Patel. She was a force sharp, empathetic, and unafraid to call out uncomfortable truths. In the first session, she asked us to share what inclusion meant to us. I hesitated, but Sarah nudged me. "It means being seen," I said, my voice quiet but clear. "Not just tolerated, but valued for who I am." The room was silent for a moment. Then Dr. Patel nodded. "Exactly. That's what we're building here." The training wasn't perfect. Some colleagues rolled their eyes. Others checked their phones. But enough engaged to make it feel like progress. Priya shared her experiences as a woman of color. Mike opened up about his mental health. Each story chipped away at the walls Hargrove had built, creating space for honesty. By the end of the week, a small group of us, Sarah, Mike, Priya, Rachel, and formed an informal committee to push for more changes, like better HR policies and a diversity task force. Outside work, Jamie was my anchor. We spent evenings planning a future that felt possible now: a trip to Provincetown. Maybe a place together. "You're different," he said one night, his fingers tracing mine. "Lighter. Like you're finally letting yourself breathe." He was right, but the weight wasn't gone. Hargrove's leave was under review, and rumors swirled that he was fighting to return. Midweek, Linda called me in. "Hargrove's appealing his suspension," she said. "He's claiming he was unfairly targeted, that you exaggerated his behavior." My stomach dropped. I'd known he wouldn't go quietly, but the reality hit hard. "We need you to testify again," Linda added. "This time, it's a formal board review. Are you up for it?" I nodded, but fear gnawed at me. Testifying again meant reliving every moment, facing Hargrove's polished denials. Sarah and the others rallied around me, helping me prepare. We met at the deli, our makeshift war room, drafting responses to every possible angle Hargrove might take. "He'll try to paint you as the problem," Priya said. "But we've got evidence. He can't twist this." The board review was set for Friday, a high-stakes showdown. I spent the days leading up to it in a haze, my focus split between work and preparation. Jamie stayed over the night before, his presence a steadying force. "You're not just fighting for you," he reminded me, his voice soft in the dark. "You're showing everyone what's possible." His words carried me to sleep, a fragile shield against the storm ahead. Friday morning. The boardroom felt colder, the stakes higher. Hargrove was there, his suit impeccable, his demeanor calculated. The board. 5 executives including Ms. Carter, listened as he spun his narrative a dedicated leader misunderstood. A team misled by a disgruntled employee. His words were smooth, but I saw cracks, a nervous tick in his jaw, a glance at the door. When my turn came, I stood, my voice stronger than before. "This isn't about me," I said. "It's about a workplace where no one has to hide who they are." Hargrove pressured me to reveal my truth, but he didn't expect the truth to fight back. I laid out the facts, backed by statements from my allies. Sarah and Mike testified too, their voices unwavering. The board listened, their faces serious but engaged. Hargrove's rebuttal was weaker this time, his confidence shaken. When the session ended, the board promised a final decision by Monday. I left the room exhausted but proud, surrounded by my team. "You nailed it," Sarah said, her smile wide. For the first time, I believed her. Monday morning arrived like a verdict day, the office humming with anticipation. I walked in, my heart a drumbeat, and found a note on my desk. "We're with you, Elliot." It was unsigned, but the handwriting was a mix. Sarah's loops, Mike's scrawl, Priya's precision. It was a small gesture, but it felt like armor. Linda called me, Sarah, Mike, and Priya into her office at noon. Ms. Carter was there, her expression calm but resolute. "The board has made its decision," she said. "Mr. Hargrove's employment has been terminated, effective immediately. His actions violated our values and created a hostile environment. We're committed to doing better." Relief washed over me, so strong I nearly swayed. Sarah grabbed my hand, her eyes shining. Mike let out a quiet yes, and Priya's smile was triumphant. Ms. Carter continued, "We're also formalizing the diversity task force you proposed. Elliot, we'd like you to lead it, if you're willing." I was stunned. Leadership wasn't something I'd ever imagined. But I nodded. "I'm in." The news spread quickly. By afternoon, the office was alive with chatter, most of it celebratory. Greg and a few others kept their distance, but the majority rallied around us. Rachel organized a lunch to celebrate. A noisy affair at the deli where colleagues shared stories of their own battles with fear and silence. It wasn't perfect change, never isbit, it was a start. That evening, I took Jamie to the park where we'd walked so many times. The autumn leaves were gone now, the trees bare, but the air felt alive with possibility. I told him everything: the termination, the task force, the future I was starting to see. He listened, his eyes bright, then pulled me close. "You didn't just win," he said. "You built something, a place where others can be free too." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. The task force met, drafting policies to protect employees and foster inclusion. We brought in Dr. Patel again, her expertise guiding us. The office slowly shifted, conversations more open, walls coming down. I still faced challenge-skeptical colleagues. The weight of leadership, but I wasn't alone. Sarah, Mike, Priya, and others were with me. A team forged in fire. One night, months later, I stood in front of a mirror in Jamie's apartment, adjusting a tie for a company gala. It was the first event since Hargrove's departure, a chance to celebrate the new direction. I was nervous, but Jamie's reflection appeared behind me, his hands on my shoulders. "You're not hiding anymore," he said, his voice a promise. "And neither are they." At the gala, I looked out at my colleagues, some familiar allies, others new faces, and saw a room full of people learning to be themselves. I raised a glass, my voice steady. "To truth," I said, "and to standing together." The room echoed my toast, a chorus of voices that felt like home. My truth had been forced into the open, but it hadn't broken me. Instead, it had sparked a movement, one that grew with every story shared, every hand extended. Hargrove hadn't expected the office to stand with me, but they did. And in their strength, I found my own. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, I knew I was ready for it.